We start with 10 and we count down to 1. Dre's top 10 list is so much fun. Nobody knows how it's going to end, so hang on tight, my dear old friend. So many choices that he may choose from. Welcome to Dre's top 10 kingdom. 10, 9, 8, 7, all the way to 1. Till then our journey will never be done.
You may remember the top 10 list I uploaded in the summer about the top 10 most devastating World Series losses. If it had taken place after the last World Series, the Blue Jays definitely would have been on the list, because that one must have been brutal for their fans to watch. But today, I'm going to be switching to the National Football League. It has officially been a month since Super Bowl 60. It's great when your football team makes the Super Bowl, but it's rough when they lose the big game. But the ways that these teams lost were the most crushing of all. And I can imagine what they must have felt like if you're a fan of any of these teams. I'm limiting it to one team per entry. Anyways, without further ado, let's dive into it. Number 10, Carolina Panthers, 2016. The Panthers to this day have never won a Super Bowl. It seemed like this would be the year. They had a 15-1 regular season record, which sounds incredible, but once the Super Bowl came, when they had to face the AFC champions, Peyton Manning and the Denver Broncos, they didn't have the mojo they previously had. Throughout the game, it seemed like Denver was dominating, but the Panthers had a chance. With 4 minutes left in the game, they were only 6 points behind with possession of the ball. And then came the ultimate gut punch. On 3rd and 9, in their own territory, Panthers quarterback Cam Newton fumbled the ball, which was recovered by the Broncos. They ended up winning the game 24-10. My cousin's husband is a Panthers fan, and I'm sure this one was tough for him, but I think they do have the potential to win a title one day. Number 9, Arizona Cardinals, 2009. The Cardinals also have never won a Super Bowl. Today, they're the only team in the NFC West still haven't won one, and 2009 was not their year. They were playing the Pittsburgh Steelers, who have won 5 Super Bowl titles, and were looking to become the first team with 6. Things started to go terribly wrong for the Cardinals at the end of the first half, which had the Cardinals throw an interception, which was returned for a touchdown by the Steelers as time expired. The Cardinals did have a 3-point lead with only 40 seconds left in the game, but on 2nd and goal, Santonio Holmes made a phenomenal catch for a go-ahead touchdown, and the Steelers ended up winning the game 27-23. I'm sure the hardest part for a lot of these fans were thinking, like, if the pick six didn't happen, they might have ended up winning the game. Number 8, Dallas Cowboys, 1979. I know, everyone who isn't a Dallas fan hates them, especially if your team is another NFC East team like me, but you've got to admit, this was a tough loss. Like the previous entry, the Cowboys in the Super Bowl were playing the Pittsburgh Steelers. The main thing that earns this game a spot on the list is when Jackie Smith dropped a wide open touchdown pass in the 4th quarter, which could have tied the game. I've heard he was a player who was known for making catches, but at a time like this, he failed under all that pressure, and they had to settle for a field goal. The Steelers ended up winning 35-31. Although Dallas has won 5 Super Bowls, including 3 up to that point, I'm sure this game haunted Jackie Smith for a long time. Number 7, Minnesota Vikings, 1977. This was Minnesota's 4th Super Bowl appearance, and they still never won a Super Bowl. In this game, they lost 32-14 to the Oakland Raiders. It was their 4th time going to the Super Bowl in just 7 years. It doesn't matter what happened in the game. Just knowing that alone must have eaten at all the players and fans. There is one other team that can relate to that kind of pain, but just wait, we'll get there. Despite making the playoffs many times since, they never made it back to another Super Bowl. Since then, they had suffered 2 devastating losses in the NFC Championship in both 1999 and 2010. Look it up yourselves if you want to know what happened in those 2 games. Number 6, New England Patriots, 2008. Here we've got what is widely considered to be the biggest upset in Super Bowl history. The Patriots went 16-0 for the regular season, being only the second team to ever be undefeated during the regular season. Tom Brady and his Patriots were facing Eli Manning and the New York Giants. The end of this game was insane. With just a minute left, the Patriots nearly made an interception that would have sealed the game. And then, on 3rd and 5, Manning escaped a sack in between a bunch of defenders and then threw the ball, which was caught by David Tyree with him pinning the ball to his helmet. This is widely regarded as the helmet catch because it was ridiculous. And with 35 seconds left, the Giants scored a touchdown to take the lead 17-14 and finish the big upset, and the Patriots' only loss of the season. This is why you should never be comfortable knowing your team is a heavy favorite. But luckily for Tom Brady, he ended his career with 7 Super Bowl rings, including one with Tampa Bay, as he was coming to the end of his career. Number 5, San Francisco 49ers 2024. The 49ers won their first 5 Super Bowl appearances. The thing is, their last title was in 1995. They've appeared in the big game 3 times since then, and lost every one. This was a rematch of the Super Bowl they played 4 years before against Pat Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. Losing this game in any way would have been tough, but there were multiple things that made this one especially devastating. San Francisco was up 10-0 to start, but couldn't hold on to the lead. When the 49ers scored their last touchdown, the Chiefs blocked the extra point, and eventually the game went into overtime with the score tied at 16. I'm sure it was hard enough knowing they might have already won the game if they had made that extra point. But the ultimate killer was how the game ended. The 49ers had possession first and could only kick a field goal on their possession, and Kansas City won the game by making the touchdown with just 3 seconds left in overtime. From what I've heard, there were a lot of TVs smashed in San Francisco at the end of that game. I don't condone that behavior, I'm just stating the fact. Number 4, Tennessee Titans 2000. The Titans were looking for their first Super Bowl title, facing the St. Louis Rams, who are now in LA. What made this such a heartbreaking loss was the final play of the game. The Titans were down 23-16, and they needed one final play to make the touchdown, which probably would have tied the game and sent it into overtime. But Kevin Dyson was tackled by Mike Jones just 1 yard short of the plane as time expired. Dyson reaching for the end zone in desperation became an infamous visual. When I played games when I was a young kid, it made me crazy when I was just one of something away from achieving something. If I was a fan of this team back then, I'm sure I would have totally lost my mind, even though I wasn't born yet. The only thing that would have made it worse is if the Titans were down by less than 7 points. Just imagine if that was the case. Number 3, Buffalo Bills 1991. 2 words, wide right. Every Bills fan knows what that means. The Buffalo Bills were playing the New York Giants, and all Scott Norwood needed to do was kick a 47-yard field goal to win the game as time expired. It was a relatively long field goal at the time, but could have been done. And he made a 48-yard field goal before, but he didn't make this kick. And just like that, the game was over. But it's not just the miss itself that made this loss so grueling, but also the fact that the Bills made the next 3 Super Bowls and lost every one. And the Bills never made it back to this day. Only the Vikings could relate to that kind of pain, except their 4 losses weren't consecutive. Not to mention, it was the only Super Bowl to have been decided by a single point, as it ended 20-19. I have a job coach in the work program I go to who is from Buffalo, and I'm not kidding, he gave up being a fan of his team because of all this. But you've got to give credit to the Bills for being AFC champions for 4 straight years. I'd still consider that a dynasty. Number 2, Seattle Seahawks 2015. The Seahawks had just won their second title in Super Bowl 60 against the New England Patriots. Congratulations to them. However, that doesn't make the way they lost this game any less devastating when it happened. They were actually playing the same team, the Patriots. Imagine this. Your team has a chance to win back-to-back Super Bowl titles. With just a minute left in the game, your team, down 28-24, makes a miraculous catch at the 5-yard line. Next thing you know, you're at the 1-yard line with 20 seconds left and 2 timeouts. You have Marshawn Lynch, who was widely regarded as the best running back in the NFL at the time. So you hand the ball to him, who could easily run it in to win the Super Bowl for your team. Well, that's what you'd think. Instead, they decide to throw the ball, and guess what? It was intercepted by the Patriots cornerback, Malcolm Butler. That just instantly flipped the script, and the Patriots won, just like that. Do I think the Seahawks definitely would have won if they handed the ball to Lynch? I do not. I do think the Patriots defense could have stopped him, and Malcolm Butler just made an incredible play. But for Seahawks fans, just seeing their Super Bowl victory suddenly and instantly get stripped away from them because of that controversial play call, it's hard to even fathom how excruciatingly painful that moment must have been. I'm happy for them that they finally won another title, but at the time, it was something that would always stick with them, and not in a good way. Before we get to number 1, let's go over some honorable, or in this case, dishonorable mentions. Philadelphia Eagles 2023. I had to throw my team in this video at some point. It was the 3rd time the Eagles lost a Super Bowl, but I decided to put this one as a dishonorable mention because I lived it. Although I didn't care much about sports back then, or know much about football, I still put this game on and saw them lose to Kansas City. In the first half of this game, the Eagles seemed like the better team, but things turned around in the second half. The gut punch that sealed the game was when a holding penalty was called on the Eagles defense, which allowed Kansas City to run out the clock and kick a short field goal to take the lead with just 10 seconds left. Pat Mahomes and the Chiefs ended up winning 38-35, making it the highest losing score in the Super Bowl. My mom and my stepdad went to see his family to watch the game. At the end of the game, John was so upset that he didn't say bye to anyone and didn't speak for the rest of the night. At least we got him back 2 years later. Denver Broncos 2014. This game gets a dishonorable mention simply for how humiliating it was for the Broncos. It seemed like the game was over right from the beginning. It started with Denver having trouble with the first snap, and it went all the way into the end zone, giving a safety to the Seattle Seahawks. So the game just started, and Denver was already losing 2-0. The final score ended up being 43-8, which is why this is considered by many to be the worst Super Bowl. At least Peyton Manning and his Broncos won it all just 2 years later. Cincinnati Bengals 1989. The Bengals were facing a dynasty Joe Montana and the 49ers. It was the second time the two teams faced each other in the Super Bowl, and Cincinnati fell short both times. The Bengals were up 13-6 going into the fourth quarter, but the 49ers didn't give up. They won the game by driving the ball down the field to score the game-winning touchdown with just 35 seconds left, and they won 20-16. Cincinnati still has never won a Super Bowl to this day. I'd probably put this at number 11 on this list if it went to 11. But anyways, what's up with teams winning with just 35 seconds left? Baltimore Colts, 1969. It was only the third Super Bowl. The first two Super Bowls were both won by the Green Bay Packers, the champions of the NFC. What made this a tough loss was simply that it had another surprising result. The Colts were widely favored to win, since the NFC was seen as more dominant than the AFC. But the Colts ended up losing to the AFC champions, the New York Jets. But it's actually good that they won that Super Bowl, because for a long time and to this day, the Jets have been one of the weakest franchises in the NFL. Miami Dolphins, 1983. In a shortened season, the Dolphins played the Washington Redskins, who are now known as the Washington Commanders. It was their second matchup, with Miami winning the first one, but not this time. At halftime, the Dolphins were leading 17-10, but the second half proved to be very frustrating. Washington scored 17 points, while Miami failed to score any, which led to them losing 27-17. While they have won 2 Super Bowls before that, they have never done it since. Anyways, it's time to reveal the number 1 most devastating Super Bowl loss in NFL history. If you've watched a lot of football, you might already have an idea of what it's going to be. Here it goes. Number 1, Atlanta Falcons, 2017. There is no Super Bowl loss that was as crushing as this one was. It had almost everything that could be devastating about losing the Super Bowl combined into one. If this is your team, I'd recommend clicking off this video. Once again, we've got a team that faced Tom Brady and the New England Patriots, and the Falcons had never won a Super Bowl title. Matt Ryan and the Atlanta Falcons were destroying the Patriots. They eventually had a 28-3 lead against them, which held until there were 2 minutes left in the third quarter, which means there were 17 minutes left in the game. Up until that point, there had never been a Super Bowl comeback of more than 10 points. There was no way New England could come back, right? Well, that's what they were thinking. But then the Falcons started to make a fool of themselves on both sides of the ball. All the fans could do was slowly agonize as they watched them choke. The worst part was towards the end, when they were in field position for an easy field goal to make it a 2-score game again. And instead of taking a knee and kicking the field goal, they tried to go for the touchdown and got sacked out of field goal range. Then the Patriots came back to tie the game at 28 with just a minute left and send it into overtime to fully complete the ultimate comeback. The numbers 28-3 have become infamous in Atlanta ever since, and the franchise has never been the same. In fact, I'd go as far as to say this was not only the worst loss in Super Bowl history, but probably the worst loss in American sports history. And that'll be it for today. As distressing as it can be to see your team lose championships in these ways, they are only games after all. At least you're not on the team, unless someone from any of these teams is actually watching my video, but I highly doubt that. But thanks for watching if you did find this video. Bye everyone.